All right, it's time. We are finally doing this. We're talking about Springtrap, the killer that everyone's been begging for since DVD was a thing. It's here, and now we're going to talk about it. Before we get into this, though, I think there are two things you should know. The first is I'm not that big a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, and I know next to nothing about the lore outside of the premise. The second thing you should know is I genuinely have little interest in digging into the lore because, look, I've seen Rorschach tests less mentally exhausting than the Five Nights at Freddy's lore. Even the creator has said that people take the lore more seriously than he ever did. So what does that tell you? But this is the series I do, and I guess I got to give it my best shot. So based on my understanding, based on what I understand, I will explain what I can for those who need a quick lesson in the Five Nights at Freddy's lore. If you are brand new to the lore and have no idea what's going on, brace yourself. This is going to be a very brief, very abridged version of the lore, Five Nights at Freddy's lore, okay? All right, so this is how I understand it. It all began with an assassination of the old guard. There was a time when all pizza families bent the knee to the big cheese himself, Charles Entertainment Cheese the Third.
Bro, it is Charleston Entertainment Cheese the Third. The first brother died in the war. Put some respect on his name.
The Rat, as he was known, was infamous for his tight-fisted control of the pizza business and his lucrative yet crooked casinos for children. To say he was rolling in the pizza dough would be a gross understatement. Every other pizza family knew that if they wanted to keep the pepperoni rolling, they had to stuff the crust of the Rat. Not even the infamous Domino family, the DiGiorno family, the CC Syndicate, the once big three pizza families, not even they could avoid the influence of the Rat himself. So out of desperation, the top families met in the secret Pizza Hut to discuss a way to cut the cheese. And that is when a certain bear stepped forward with a proposition. This bear's name was Fazbear. He promised in just 5 nights, the worries of all the pizza families would be behind them, and for a cut of their pepperoni, for a slice, he'd ensure each of them would get a piece of the pie. Of course, no one knew the name Freddy Fazbear yet. He was just an up-and-coming, a rookie, as it were, but he had a charm to him, a presence that reminded them a little bit of the Rat. But they were out of options at this point, and if this bear thought he could take down the Don himself in just 5 nights, well, so be it. So the deal was struck, and agreements were signed in marinara sauce with the blessing of the Little Caesar himself. 5 nights later, word came down from on top. The cheese was out and the Fazbear was in. Chuck wouldn't explain what happened. In fact, he wouldn't look the other families in the eye, because he willingly paid tribute to the new dawn of the pizza underworld, Freddy Fazbear, whose pizzeria quickly took the world by storm, whether they wanted it to or not. I mean, that's just what I learned anyway. I mean, I could be off on a few details, but I think that's pretty much the gist of it. But as usual, guys, Dead by Daylight likes to change things up to make the franchise connect to their world, so let's go over the new lore that Dead by Daylight obviously created themselves. So apparently there was this guy named William Afton or something, some kind of relation to Shaggy Rogers, I don't know. Anyway, a secret serial killer he was. He got a rush out of killing children. Seems like a twisted kind of guy. He wore an animatronic suit of a big yellow rabbit named Spring Bonnie or something, and he would use this to lure kids to their demise, and then he would hide their bodies in the suits of the Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria. What he didn't know was that the ghosts of these victims he was killing, they were coming back and possessing the suits he stuffed them in, and now they were trying to do him in as a result. Hiding inside of his Spring Bonnie costume, he tried to give them the slip. However, something went wrong, and the metal suit suddenly activated, crushing him and ripping his body apart internally. Afton died that night, and Springtrap was born. Springtrap awoke to the sound of children laughing, and his desire to kill filled him again. He followed the voices through a dense black fog, and as he walked through, he realized he could finally satisfy his need to kill here, his dark craving to murder. This was his new paradise. This was his home. Yeah. Leave it to Dead by Daylight to take a brilliantly deep story of the power struggle of various pizza families, the real grit of a tragic story of a group of conglomerates trying to come together against one wicked Don, and turn that into a simple murdering ghost story. Typical. They should make a game out of it. I don't know. Anyway, now let's jump into the powers of Springtrap. Let's get into the killer now, because y'all don't care about the lore. As awesome as the lore originally was, that's not what you're here for. You're here for the power, so let's talk about it. The animatronic's power is Fazbear's Fright. Kind of ironic that you'd call it Fazbear's Fright when this character is not Fazbear, but whatever. No one can truly become the Dawn. Anyway, this power has two primary attributes. First, Springtrap carries around a large fire axe. He can throw this fire axe, but it doesn't have the same range as Huntress. In fact, it's thrown in sort of an arc. Instead, the axe has a limited range, and depending on what it lands on, the axe will apply different effects. If the axe hits a survivor, it will embed in their back, applying the broken and oblivious status effect until removed. The aura of the axe is also always shown to Springtrap, so there's no hiding from him. The survivor can attempt to remove the axe themselves or have another survivor do it, and if Springtrap tries to land an attack while the axe is still in the survivor, he will turn them around, roar in their face, and then automatically pick them up. If the axe hits something in the environment, it will stay there and release a 2-meter area of effect where survivors who pass through it give off Killer's Instinct, and Springtrap himself gets a speed boost if he passes through it. Springtrap also gains a slight speed boost when he's not carrying the axe, so whether or not you want to hold on to the axe or just drop it to get your speed boost is totally up to you. For me, I've never been good at range killers to begin with, so this isn't really a power that I'm all that crazy about. It can be very frustrating for me, especially when I know I should have hit them and I clearly don't hit them. It can be absolutely exhausting, but hey, you know what? For all you range killers out there, for all you range killer mains out there, he's your boy. Now, the second aspect of the power are the security doors. There's one by each generator, right? Springtrap can access the doors and enter, becoming undetectable, and then choosing an opposite door to exit from, allowing great map traversal. Survivors can access the doors too to do the exact same thing. However, they can't choose the door they exit from. Instead, they'll exit from a door that is paired with it. Furthermore, if a survivor enters the door at the same time Springtrap does, and they intersect, Springtrap will instantly grab the survivor and carry them out. And I'll be honest, I've only done this a few times because I think a lot of survivors don't want to take that risk by walking through the doors themselves. I think that that's a huge risk many survivors aren't willing to take. However, there's more to the power than that. Survivors have access to the door security cameras. If the survivor sees Springtrap through the cameras, they can give away the aura of Springtrap to all. And yeah, you can usually tell this if you're playing Springtrap because suddenly you'll hear static in your ear, and that's usually a sign that you're being watched. However, each security door has a certain amount of battery life, and once that runs out, the door cannot be used for its camera anymore. Furthermore, using a door in this way puts the survivor right in front of it, meaning you run the risk of having Springtrap just walk out right in front of you. If I'm being honest, one of the big struggles is, in order for Springtrap to be really effective, you want to take advantage of survivors using the doors, and a lot of survivors are smart enough to say, you know what, just ignore the doors. Plus, a little bit of a tip for you, not sure if you knew this, some of you may be complaining, why does Springtrap have to be so hard to detect when he comes out of the door? There's a way to tell. Watch the little screen pad at the bottom of the door. If it starts blinking, that means Springtrap's on his way. So, yeah, keep an eye on that. That's a little tip that I learned. Anyway, with these powers combined, Springtrap's power allows for a lot of unique interactivity and makes him one of the most unique killers to play, with a good map traversal and good range capability. Reminding me a little bit of the Xenomorph, but maybe not as awesome. But also one of the most frustrating killers to play. His insane map traversal makes him hard to predict, and his range capability makes him frustrating at the best of times. And as a player of Springtrap, as someone who's not good at range killing and just not good at competitive play in the first place, I find him very frustrating to get the hang of. But you know what, guys? That's Five Nights at Freddy's for you. Being insanely engaging while also insanely annoying goes right in line with the lore of the franchise. Anyway, if you like Springtrap, and I know a lot of you do, I run into plenty of you while playing, he's an interesting killer to play, and I know that a lot of people were really excited for a Five Nights at Freddy's killer, and now you've got him, so I hope that he was everything you ever wanted. Anyway, moving on from that, let's talk about the perks. The animatronic, like all characters, comes with 3 unique perks: Haywire, Help Wanted, and Phantom Fear. These perks are okay. There's one that I really like. The other 2 are just meh or so-so. Here, let's talk about them. Haywire. This is an in-game perk that a lot of people have asked for, and I can kind of see why. Here's why. If the survivors try to open the exit gates and they progress past 50%, if they stop opening it for any reason, the gate will automatically start regressing at 50% the normal rate. You can actually tell this is happening because the lights above the switch will start flickering. I like this on the one hand because it's very irritating when survivors run over and push the opening gates to 99% and then double back to save a hooked survivor or just taunt the killer, and this will definitely help prevent that. The only problem I have with that is, let's say that you're playing Springtrap, right, and you see one of these exit gates blinking and the survivors are running around it, you can guard that and try to prevent them from opening it, but then that just means another survivor's heading to the other exit gate. So it can be a little bit frustrating, but that's just me. I never really get any value out of Haywire. Help wanted. This one is kind of strange, but I get it. When you damage a generator, the generator becomes compromised. When that compromised generator is completed, for 60 seconds, your recovery from basic attacks is increased by 25%. Now, I haven't gotten a whole lot of value off of this personally. I think that's only worked for me once or twice, but I get the appeal. I mean, it can be kind of nice to be in the middle of a chase, and then suddenly the gen you hit earlier is complete, and now suddenly your hits get a bit faster and more frequent, and you can hit and you can recover a lot quicker. I have found some value out of this perk, I will admit. Just not as much as I think I would like, and plus, I think there are other perks out there that can help with this a little bit more, but that's beside the point. And finally, Phantom Fear. Probably my favorite perk of theirs. Every 60 seconds, when a survivor within your terror radius looks in your direction and sees you, they scream and have their aura revealed for 2 seconds. I love this. I absolutely love this, because my style of play, I revolve around aura reading builds and discovering survivors. So if I run this with Lethal Pursuer, and I run this with Nowhere to Hide, or other aura reading perks, I can just constantly be keeping track of where survivors are and knowing where they are at all times, which really, really helps. So I do like that. The downer is if survivors start screaming, that means they're going to start running most of the time. So that can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. However, if you run some undetectable perks with this and keep your terror radius low, you can still kind of catch them off guard once your terror radius comes back on and suddenly you're right on top of them and that's like, oh shoot, you know. So I found a lot more use out of Phantom Fear than any of his other perks, but that's just me. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Five Nights at Freddy's chapter that everyone's been begging for, everyone's been asking for. We finally got Springtrap in the game. I know that many of you are super happy and super hyped. I wish I could be more. I'm just not a huge fan of the Five Nights at Freddy lore or franchise. It's not really my thing. And so when they said it was coming, my response was just, okay. Like, it's not really my thing. And after playing the killer a whole lot, I can say this. He's not really my bread and butter. He's not really my cup of tea. He's not my style of killer. Like, for me, I will always be a bigger fan of Dracula and the Spirit and characters like that, but ranged killers have always given me a lot of trouble, and since Springtrap relies so much on his area traversal and his range, it's just not going to be a character that I play that well with. But we're finally done with that, and that means that we have officially, at last, finally, I can't believe I'm saying this, finally, we've caught up with all the killers and survivors in Dead by Daylight. That means that now we can just wait until the next ones come out. And I think the next ones are supposed to be from The Walking Dead. Ooh, boy. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. And I need a break. I need a break from Dead by Daylight. I really do. And I will see you guys next time in the fog. Take care.